A sheriff pulls up to a gas station. Surrounding him are numerous charred and deserted vehicles. He notices a sign that reads, "No gas." Suddenly, he hears noises behind him. It's a little girl. She picks up her teddy bear and walks away. The sheriff calls out, assuring her he means no harm. However, this girl is one of the undead. She lunges to attack, but the sheriff shoots her in the head. A few weeks prior to the apocalypse, two police officers sit in a car, chatting about women. Shane shares stories about his girlfriends. He claims all his past girlfriends were foolish. Rick, who is married, admits he has issues too. His wife, Lori, wants him to spend more time with her. During their last encounter, she insulted him in front of their son. Suddenly, the radio crackles with a report about armed criminals on the run. Rick and Shane rush to help. They stop on the road, lay down spike strips, and wait. The criminal's car hits the spikes and flips over multiple times. The police move in, but one armed criminal escapes the wreck. He fires at Rick, but the bullet hits his vest. The police take down two criminals, but a third crawls out.
You understand?
Rick is badly hurt. Shane applies pressure to the wound and asks for an ambulance. Later, Shane visits Rick in the hospital, bringing flowers as a gift from the police department. Rick comments on the ugly vase, but Shane remains silent. Rick tries to reach out to his friend, but Shane doesn't respond. He notices the flowers are already wilting. Looking at the clock on the wall, it feels like time has frozen. Rick attempts to get out of bed, but lacks the strength and collapses to the floor. He opens the door and steps into the hallway. Chaos surrounds him with debris everywhere, and not a single person in sight. He moves ahead and attempts to make a call, but the phone is dead. Rick grabs the matches and continues down the hallway. He is stunned by what he discovers. He turns around and finds a door. Inside, there are many zombies. Rick quickly flees and searches for an exit from the building. Outside, he sees a large number of corpses. Rick spots a bicycle. Nearby, there's a creature that used to be a woman. When Rick returns home, his family is missing. He fears they are dead. He steps outside and notices a man walking slowly, but suddenly, another man rushes in and kills the zombie. A boy sneaks up on Rick and hits him on the head with a shovel. The sheriff wakes up in a bed. A man named Morgan asks him one question. "Did you get bitten?" Rick explains he was a police officer and got shot. Morgan believes him because infected people have fevers. The man invites Rick to dinner. Rick mentions he was in a coma and doesn't understand what's happening. Morgan tells him that an apocalypse has happened. People get infected by a mysterious virus. They die and then come back to life. But the undead only want to eat other humans. Morgan, his wife, and son moved into this house after the outbreak began, but his wife got infected. She had a high fever, and antibiotics didn't work. She died and came back as a zombie. Now she tries to get in every night. In the morning, Rick kills his first zombie. Morgan teaches Rick that the only way to stop the monsters is to destroy their brains. They go to Rick's house, and he insists that his family is alive and just left. He realizes there are no photo albums or family pictures. Looters wouldn't take those. Rick brings his new friends to the police station. The building still has a backup generator operating. They take a hot shower and savor the moment. Morgan mentions that there are whispers about Atlanta being a safe zone, and Rick believes his family might have gone there. Rick hands Morgan a rifle with a scope and some ammo while he grabs a bag of weapons. Rick plans to head to Atlanta to search for his family and invites Morgan to join him. But Morgan says he and his son need a few more days to prepare. They agree to check the radio every day at sunset to update each other on their locations. Morgan and Dwayne head home. Rick spots a walker. This zombie used to be his co-worker. Rick shoots it in the head. He hits the road but stops for a moment at a park. There, he finds a zombie girl. He apologizes and then kills her. Back at home, Morgan decides to end his wife's suffering. He starts shooting with his rifle, drawing the attention of nearby walkers. He takes down several zombies and sees his wife. He tries to shoot her but can't pull the trigger. Meanwhile, Rick attempts to reach someone in Atlanta via radio. A group of survivors has set up a camp near the city. Shane hears that the radio is working, but he is unable to communicate. Shane has taken charge of the group. He rescued Rick's wife and son, but has done something terrible. Rick runs out of gas. He abandons the police car and continues on foot. He arrives at a farm, but the owners are all dead. Rick notices a horse left behind. He climbs onto the horse and rides toward Atlanta. When he arrives, the city is in ruins, with burnt cars and walkers everywhere. Rick turns into an ally and spots a swarm of zombies ahead. The horse gets frightened and attempts to flee, but the walkers close in on them. Rick tumbles off his horse and tries to escape. Most walkers feast on horse. Meanwhile, Rick takes down several zombies and seeks refuge under a tank. Zombies crawl beneath the tank, and Rick decides to end it all. Suddenly, the soldier inside the tank comes to life, and Rick shoots him. Zombies surround the tank from every direction. Back at the survivor camp, Lori heads into the woods to gather mushrooms. She hears odd noises from the forest. Thinking they are walkers, she discovers it's Shane. He kisses her, and she kisses back. Meanwhile, Rick remains in the tank. An unknown voice on the radio tells him to exit the tank and run towards him. The sheriff climbs out and fights off several zombies. He encounters a stranger. Glenn assists Rick in escaping and introduces him to his group. A woman named Andrea reacts harshly to Rick, threatening him with a gun. They hear gunfire and rush to the roof. A man named Merle is shooting at the walkers. T-Dog asks Merle to lower his weapon, but Merle attacks him instead. Rick steps in and handcuffs Merle to a pipe. The survivors find themselves trapped. Their building is encircled by walkers, and the group starts brainstorming an escape plan. Meanwhile, at the camp, Shane teaches Carl how to tie knots. Lori appreciates Shane's efforts to fill in for Carl's father. Rick devises a plan. They take down 2 walkers and drag their bodies inside. Rick and Glenn smear themselves with zombie blood and venture outside. The walkers ignore them. Glenn feels anxious, but Rick helps him regain his composure. Suddenly, it begins to rain. The rain washes away the stench, and the zombies start to attack. Rick and Glenn fight off several walkers and locate a car. The walkers are distracted, allowing the rest of the group to exit the building. T-Dog attempts to help the aggressive man, but accidentally drops the handcuff keys. The others head to the survivor camp. Glenn mentions that they wouldn't have survived without their new ally. Rick steps out of the car and reunites with his family, embracing his son and wife. Shane smiles at his living friend, but realizes his relationship with Lori is over. Merle is still on the roof, feeling the sun's heat and starting to lose his grip on reality as zombies begin to break through the door. Merle struggles to free his hand but fails. Spotting some tools, he decides to take drastic action. Later that night, Rick shares his story about waking up in the hospital and making his way to Atlanta. A man named Ed adds more wood to the fire. Shane warns him not to do that, as it could attract walkers. Ed refuses to listen. Frustrated, Shane extinguishes the fire. The following day, the group starts their tasks, but soon a scream echoes from the forest. Carl spots a walker. The men rush to attack the zombie and decapitate it. Daryl emerges from the woods. He is the brother of the man left on the roof. The zombie's head suddenly moves, and Daryl shoots it with a crossbow. He asks about his brother. Rick admits he handcuffed Merle to a pipe. Daryl tries to confront Rick, but Shane intervenes. Rick vows to go and rescue Merle together. Shane disagrees, saying Rick is needed at the camp as walkers are approaching. Despite Shane's warnings, Rick feels guilty and decides to head into town. Shane stays behind to protect the camp. Meanwhile, Lori washes clothes by the shore. Shane plays in the water with Carl, but Lori tells Shane to keep his distance from her son. She insists she will be with Rick and wants Shane to stay away from their family. Ed starts yelling at his wife and orders her to the tent, but she refuses. In a fit of rage, Ed hits her. Shane steps in and beats Ed, releasing his frustration. Back in town, Rick, Glenn, and Daryl climb onto a roof but only find a severed hand. This marks the end of episode 3. Let us know in the comments if you've seen the series and subscribe for more updates.